What's up guys, Justin here with the realtimeessentials.com, back with another Unity asset video for you. So in today's video we're going to check out FluXY, or maybe it's FluXY. It's basically a tool designed to create fluid simulations on a 2D plane inside of Unity. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so just as a reminder, this tool is on sale as a part of the Lunar New Year Mega Bundle. So that actually ends today. So if this is something you're interested in, it's on sale inside of the Daring bundle. We've talked a little bit about both these bundles on the channel. I will link to the page. I will link to this page in the notes down below so you can look at both of them. This one is contained inside of the Daring Mega Bundle in the middle tier. Remember that there's multiple different tiers in here, and if you get the upper level tier, you do get all of the different assets that are contained below as well. Note that the Roaring Bundle is also on sale, so like the mech constructor that we looked at is contained inside of that tool. There's other things inside of that bundle as well, and so we're going to focus on FluXY in this video. And so basically what FluXY is designed to do is it's designed to simulate 2D fluids in a 3D way using your GPU. So it's designed to give you that kind of like lightweight, fast effect, and it allows you to create things like fire and smoke and paint, other tools like that. And so they do have both a detailed user manual as well as an API information document that they link to on this page as well. One thing to note about this is not a three-dimensional fluid simulator, and they note that down below. So there's no volumetrics or anything like that. They're basically using a two-dimensional plane and then on that plane creating the simulation. So this is an easy way to create like people walking through water or other things like that in a lightweight sort of way. So it's not like a fluid renderer or anything like that. They're very specific about what it is. Just make sure that you read this so that your expectations are clear. And so let's go ahead and let's jump over into Unity. And so in order to bring this into Unity, you're going to want to make sure that you go to your Window Package Manager. And it's just going to be under FluXY. You want to make sure that you click on the button to download this. And then when that window pops up, you want to click on the button for import. And so what that's going to do is that's going to add a FluXY folder down here. Notice how inside of the folder, there's a quick start guide right here. So you're going to want to make sure that you open that up and read it because it's going to give you instructions on exactly what to do. Right? It's going to tell you how to import the package. It's going to tell you where the user manual and the API documentation are. So very simple, but it's going to show you how to do this. And so first off, let's take a look at some of the capabilities. And then we can talk a little bit about creating your first fluid simulator. But notice when you go in the folder, there's an option here for samples. And so there's a number of different samples for different things this can create. One of the ones I really like is the URP water. So if you click on the play button right here, and notice how I've created this inside of the universal render pipeline, but if you click the play button, you can see how what this is doing is this basically has a water surface in here. The water is being simulated in 2D, but it looks three-dimensional. So basically what you've got is you've got this container in here that's kind of a flat container, but it's reacting to the way that your character moves around. So you can see how you get the different ripples, other things like that. It also like calms down the water when you're not moving around. So there's some other options in here as well. So things like the toxic waste, for example. The toxic waste is going to react in a lot the same way, right? So you've got this kind of like inlet right here, and then everything is moving around based on your character's location. So another interesting one is there's also the ability in here to like paint on walls and other things like that. Notice how this is kind of like falling down, and basically that wall or that container is acting as a fluid simulator in here. So you can paint on things like stairs and other things like that. Notice how this is actually acting like fluid. And then final example is just the rain right here. So what this does is this allows us to create rain that's simulated on this plane, and then it's reacting to the wiper that's in here. And notice how if you turn the wiper up, you get more streaks in here. If you turn it down, then you don't get as many streaks. But this is all kind of simulating the way that fluid would work on that 2.5D plane. All right, so now let's create our own simulation. So the way that we're going to do that is you need to add two things, right? You need to start by adding a container. So we're going to go to Game Object, 3D Object, FluXY Container. That's going to place a container right here. Now, what's going to happen is the simulation is going to occur inside of this container right here. So then what we can do is we can go into our Game Object and we can add a FluXY target right here. So when we add the FluXY target, and so then If you want to see what this does, you can click on the play button right here. Notice how in game mode, this is going to start simulating smoke coming off the object. Now, let's go ahead and do a split screen here real quick so you can see kind of what happens with this. So let's say we were to take the target and move it around. So notice how when we move the target around, the smoke that's being simulated is moving along with this object. So I can move this in order to kind of adjust the way that this is going to be generated in here. So notice how the smoke is following along with this. Now, one thing I will note about this is notice what happens when you move it outside of the container. Well, when you move it outside of the container, that simulation isn't occurring outside of the simulation or outside of the container, so nothing is happening. So you can use this in order to quickly, so just make sure that you set your target inside of the container when you're doing this. But notice what this is doing. This is basically setting this simulation and it's happening along a 2D plane right here. All right, so now let's say that we wanted this to follow our camera, right? So right now, for example, notice how I can move this around. This is generating my smoke. If I was to move my camera though, so let's say we'd remove our camera maybe over here. So now we've got our camera looking at this object. Well, notice how the problem with that is that if we take our camera and move it closer, notice how this isn't facing our object, right? It's kind of like just facing the direction that it was facing. Well, you can change this by going to your container settings right here, and you can set this so that it always faces your camera. And so we want to set look at main camera for both the look at and the project from. So we're going to click on main camera right here. Now, if we move our camera around inside of our scene, notice how this object is always going to look at our camera. So it's going to face our camera no matter what direction. All right, so now let's look at how to create some other effects with this. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to adjust your container settings in order to do this. So if you scroll down, notice how there's different options in here for different things. So for example, let's say we wanted to make this look more like fire. Well, all we're going to do in order to make this look like fire is we're going to adjust some of the settings up. So we're going to bump our turbulence up like this. And we're also going to adjust our buoyancy because the hot air is going to rise. So we're going to bring our buoyancy up to like 8 right here. Well, notice how now we're getting turbulence in our scene, and this is giving us more of like a fire effect. All right, so then what we can do is we can add a material to this because it's a little bit boring right now. So all we need to do in order to do that is go to Assets, Create, Material. So we're going to create a material, and we're just going to call it Fire. And then within that material, we want to assign, so we just want to search for fluid, and we want to apply the FluXY basic fluid to this material. And so for our fire material, what we want to do is we want to select the fire gradient material that comes along with FluXY. So if you open this up, notice how that's going to let you set the gradient in here, and then you just want to take that and you want to drag it on top of your container. So you want to drag the fire into the material section of your container right here. And so there's some different things you can adjust within that fire setting. So for example, you can adjust like your additiveness. You can adjust other things like that, which you can play around with. But first, what I want to do is I want to jump back to my target and just note there's some other things you can change in here. So for example, if I bring this velocity weight down like this, notice how I'm going to get more of a fire material in here than I was previously. So I'm going to drag that velocity weight down. And so then there's some other things you can change in the target settings as well. So for example, if you change your position randomness like this, notice how that sphere is going to be kind of all over the place and you're going to get more of a burning fire look. So again, I mean, this is really just kind of a playing around with the settings, but it's really cool how easy it is to get started with this. And so then once you've made those changes, if you want to come in here and adjust some things having to do with that fire material, you can jump in here right here. So the additiveness, for example, is going to give you a brighter fire material. You can adjust some of those things as well. All right, and there's actually a ton of other information in their manual page over here for the way some different things work. So I recommend you go check that out. They've actually done a really good job of making this accessible and easy to use. So that's a very high level overview of how to start using this particular asset. If you're interested in checking it out, this bundle sale is a great time to do that. If you have any questions or anything you'd like us to get into more in depth, leave a comment down below and let me know. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.